Hey there, welcome back to another review. This time it's of the 1995 horror film The Mangler. The Mangler is loosely based on a Stephen King short story the same name, and it is widely considered by a lot of critics to be one of the worst films ever associated with Stephen King. And I disagree with that. I don't think this is nearly as bad as people say it is. I don't love the film. I like the movie. I find it to be an entertaining but flawed film. But at the same time, I don't think it's a total misfire. I don't think it's a total waste. And I don't think it's a film that is a total complete failure. I know a lot of people think this is a movie that has far too many missing parts for it to function properly, but I respectfully disagree. I think this film has a lot of legitimately great things about it that are overlooked. And even though I have issues with the film, mainly the ending and some other aspects of it that prevent me from truly loving it, it's still a film that I enjoy and I feel does deserve a little more recognition. I think it's a little bit of a diamond in the rough because it's a movie that a lot of people don't talk about, and when they do talk about it, it's not in a very positive light. And I feel a lot of the criticisms I felt are a little bit too harsh. I understand it's a personal opinion and everything, but when you say stuff like the direction is poor, I want to know why. Because there are a lot of critics who say that. They claim and they say the direction is poor, and I don't really see that at all. And I don't understand why they see that. Because I think Tobe's direction in this is some of his finest work. You can tell that this is a Tobe Hooper who's more of a wiser, older, veteran director. He's learned new tricks of the trade that he didn't really know before. And it shows here with the direction. You can tell that there's a guy who is extremely talented behind the camera. And to just ignore that, to just say that lump in the direction with all of the other things that understandably might not work about the film, I think it's not fair to Tobe Hooper or his legacy. Even in shitty films like Night Terrors, I thought his direction was fine. It's one of those things where everything else about that movie was terrible. With The Mangler, I thought his direction was fantastic, but I felt the script needed a little bit more work. I feel that it could have had a script mechanic come in and fix up a few pieces that, screw in some nuts that were a bit too loose and change a few things and, give the script a little oil change or change the ribbon or something, or, it just felt like it was a bit rusty. And I personally felt that the film got mangled, no pun intended, by the end because of a screenplay that just randomly apparently just didn't know what the fuck it wanted to do. It just was very unsatisfying in terms of the climax. I felt the film could have been concluded a lot better than it was, but I'll talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, I don't think this film is nearly as awful as its reputation suggests. It's a film that I feel is a little bit misunderstood because a lot of criticisms attack the film for being silly and they can't take it seriously. And I'm like, you're not supposed to take it seriously. The film itself doesn't take itself seriously. Why so serious? This is a movie where you have a character, the lead character played by Ted Levine, who plays a cop. He's talking about bullshit and reality. And this film clearly knows that it's over the top and is a movie about a killer man-eating laundry press, and it knows that and it plays around with that, and I don't think that's a negative. I think it would have been even worse if it took itself seriously, and I think the same critics wouldn't have been happy with the film anyway, even if it wasn't silly. So if it was serious, they would have given it shit anyway, because it'd be like, how can I take this seriously? It's a movie about an evil laundry press. They should have had more of a tongue-in-cheek approach. It's like some of these critics, I swear, they can never be happy. Like, they've already made up their mind before they even watch the movie that it's going to suck. And then, I'm guilty of that sometimes too. I admit that. But with this movie, I appreciated the fact that it knew what it was and it embraced that. And that's a big reason why I find the film to be so entertaining. Some of the best things about the movie are the lines of dialogue. It's absolutely riddled and filled to the brim with hilarious, absolutely wonderful one-liners and gags, and that alone is one of the most underrated aspects of the film. I mean, you get, like I said, there's a scene with bullshit and reality where the character played by Ted Levine, John Hunton, is talking with his best friend Mark, and his friend Mark is trying to get him to believe that the Mangler is actually possessed, and he's showing him all these books that are full of stuff that has, talks about witches and spells and things like that, and he's all like, bullshit. Reality, bullshit. Reality, bullshit. This is bullshit, Mark. So I love that, and I love the other lines of dialogue. Fun lines that Ted Levine has to say, like, "You threatening me? You threatening me? I'll take that crutch and I'll shove it up your moldy ass." So it's there's just a lot to like about this film. I felt it could have been better, but at the same time, it makes me smile, and I just absolutely adore the character played by Ted Levine. It's one of my favorite characters, and one of my favorite performances. Ted Levine is an underrated actor anyway, so it was really nice to see him in a lead role, and to play a character who isn't a serial killer. He isn't a bad guy. He's the hero, and it was a nice casting against type. Now, the film features a script by Tobe Hooper, Stephen Brooks, and Peter Welbeck. I might have mentioned that earlier. The script, like I said, it's solid with certain aspects, like the tongue-in-cheek tone, the one-liners, and some characterizations. I felt the character of Picture Man was written really well. It was an interesting performance as well, an interesting casting. They had a younger guy, Jeremy Crutchley, a younger actor, play this older man in makeup. The actor did a great job. It was just one of those things that kind of made it. It gave the scenes with this character kind of an otherworldly feel to it, and I don't know if that's intentional. Because at first I thought it was a ghost. I thought he was talking to a ghost because it's this kind of old timey guy with an old timey flashbulb camera, and he looks weird. And so I was thinking, like, is he just talking to a ghost or something? But no, it actually is a real flesh and blood human being. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting casting choice. Overall, the cast is quite excellent, except for a few. Like, I felt Vanessa Pike as Sherry. I don't know if it was the dubbing. Maybe it was the dubbing, but I thought the performance was pretty terrible by her. And I felt like Demetre Phillips as George Stanner was also awful. He was like a guy who worked with Robert Englund. He was like the foreman for the laundry mill. And he looks like Kevin Nash when he had the short hair. And he acts about just as well as Kevin Nash does. It's just not a very good performance. But maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe it was dubbing, because it kind of sounds like there's just terrible dubbing in this with those characters, with Sherry and George. Maybe it's bad dubbing, or maybe it's just bad acting. I don't know what it was, but either way, it was bad. Robert Englund, though, was a lot of fun as the bad guy, as Gartley, old man Gartley. I thought it was very unique that it was a character that couldn't walk very well and had these like braces and walked around on crutches, and Robert Englund was having a lot of fun with the role, and you could tell. And it's one of those roles where it's the type of character that you love to hate. He's a smarmy, just sleazy old man, and he's the type of guy that you want to see get folded up in a laundry press by the end of the movie. And Robert Englund just played the role brilliantly. And he reminded me a lot of the judge character played by Dan Aykroyd from Nothing But Trouble. Like, I half expected Gartley at the end of the movie to tell Officer John Hunton, "I'll see you soon, banker," and then John Hunton would be like, "No, you won't," and then jump out the wall, jump out the window or something. So because they both had the same kind of similar look, like they could totally be related. The judge from Nothing But Trouble could totally be related to Gartley, to Bill Gartley in this movie. Daniel Matmor was also his acting was adequate, but the writing with this character was so good, and there were moments where once he hit his stride, he really hit the ground running. So it was a performance that kind of started off because you could tell like this guy hasn't really done that much, but then as the film went on, he really started to pick up steam, and I thought his performance was actually quite good. So it was one of those slow starting acting performances, but once he got started and once he started building and ended up going off of and bouncing off of Ted Levine, because it really started to click because the both of them had really good chemistry with one another. And he was a unique character and a unique casting choice too. Like it kind of reminded me of the actor, I think it's Billy Connolly, who was a British comedian actor who had a similar sort of look about him. The film featured a score by Barrington Failong. I thought it was a fail. I really honestly did. One of the weakest parts of the film is definitely the score. A better score would have really helped the film because it really would have added more to the film's atmosphere and to the setting and to a lot of things about it. It sounded amateurish to me. It didn't really fit the film that well. It sounded kind of rushed, and I just imagine this film with like a John Carpenter score. Like the film would be immensely better and would have benefited a lot from a John Carpenter score, Ennio Morricone, or somebody like Alan Howarth, like some talented horror score, horror composer, a talented horror composer, not this guy who I don't even know what else he's done. It's too bad that a film that has so much wonderful, creepy, eerie atmosphere in this laundry ribbon service building, and the look of the laundry press machine and everything, to be kind of held back by such a lame score. It's well edited by David Heitner and features some wonderful cinematography by Amnon Solomon. And like I said earlier, Tobe Hooper's direction in this is fantastic. It's great. It's some of his, like I said, some of his best work. The way he ends up setting up certain shots to create certain moods and to create a certain feel. He has certain scenes with Robert Englund's character where he's shooting him from the ground up, which was an interesting choice. There's some wonderful pans, some nice zooms. It's a type of film where I don't, like I said earlier, like I don't understand the claims that this direction is bad. If you want to see bad direction from Tobe Hooper, watch Spontaneous Combustion, or watch something like Djinn, or Gin, or gin, as in you'll be drinking a shit ton of gin after you watch Gin, because it sucks so much. Or Mortuary. This is not bad direction from Tobe Hooper. This is arguably the best direction that you would see from Tobe Hooper. This is the last film where his direction was really great, because Toolbox Murders had its moments, but it did the direction kind of looked like a direct-to-video movie. But the film didn't do too well. It ended up getting like a very limited release in theaters in March of 1995. Critics totally ravaged the film. They put it through the shredder, and it didn't do that much box office on a $1.7 million budget. And that's too bad, because I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think it's a bad film. I think The Mangler is it's an entertaining fun film with flaws. The score sucks. The tone of the film, for the most part, is consistent until the ending, which I don't really felt it earned. I feel the film should have ended after they exercised the laundry press, and then it explodes, and John and Mark and Sherry escape and off into the night safe and sound. Or if you want to have a sequel bait ending, which is how it ends, then at least have Mark survive. At least have Mark go off with John, and they drive off, and after John tries to give the flowers to Sherry and tries to give his thanks to her, and then he finds out that she's now running the factory, and the machine is back up and running again. At least he could have Mark to be like, all right, this is bullshit, and then they drive off, together. It's just, I felt that there was way too much shit that was heaped onto John throughout this film, and it really culminated in the end where he was just dumped on far too much. He lost his wife in a car accident. He lost his job trying to pursue this case, and he lost his best friend, and now he's got nothing. And I don't feel that character deserved that, because Ted Levine's, like I said, he did such a remarkable job in terms of his performance, playing this grounded, no nonsense blue collar cop who has reactions that are realistic. Like when he sees the fridge that has like the ghosts and spirits popping out of it, he's all like, "What the fuck?" When he sees the aftermath of this poor old woman who got put through the Mangler, he pukes. There's a certain grit to this film that is great. It really is. And it helps that you have a gritty actor playing a gritty lead, and I'm fine with the grit, but there's a little bit too much by the ending. Like, I just felt like he just drives off, and he's just like, I'm done with this shit, but at the same time, he's got nowhere to go. He's got no more family left. His friend is dead. Like, he's got no job. Gartley's probably going to make sure that he'll never work again, so he's essentially fucked. And I don't really like that ending for this character, because I like this character so much. The film has a 106-minute running time, and it goes by, for the most part, pretty quickly, although there are some slow parts here and there, but overall I'd say the pacing is fine. I wouldn't really say this is a poorly paced film. I wouldn't say it's a poor film, period. It's one of those films where I do honestly feel that it's a movie that deserves a second chance from people who might not have liked it the first time. And I definitely feel it's a film that people should check out. If it's something that sounds interesting to you, if you like the trailer, and especially if you're a fan of Ted Levine, if you're a fan of Ted Levine and his acting, you definitely have to check this film out, because this is some of his best acting, in my opinion, and he gets to play the lead, which is a really nice thing to see. And it's a film that does show you that Tobe Hooper is a legitimately good director, and he really is missed, because there are a lot of directors who do a lot of direct-to-video horror films that might get higher ratings than this film does, and critics might like more than this, like the director who did Honeymoon. But Tobe Hooper is better. He was better than them at this point, and he probably could have turned out better products than what we got with Mortuary or Gin, but he was given such an extremely low budget and with those films, and at that point in his career, it was that point where he was probably just taking paycheck roles, and it was something where just flop after flop after flop. I mean, that's got to take a lot out of you. I mean, this is essentially Tobe's last stand, his last shot at doing a studio film, and the film didn't get a wide release, tanked in the box office, critics gave it scathing reviews, and the film just died out. It just is one of those movies that it came and went, and Tobe was stuck without a job for a while after this, until like multiple years, until he did the Toolbox Murders remake. And I think he might have done something a little bit before that, but I'm not sure. But regardless, it's one of those kind of sad stories that Tobe, such a promising horror director, just had these flops like Life Force and Invaders from Mars, and then had the Mangler, which didn't do very well, and it was just one of those things where you really felt for Tobe, and you really wish that things had ended differently before he passed on. That he had like one last great film, but that's not what happened. He was stuck directing some movie in uh, another continent. Really, like it was a foreign film. He couldn't get a job in the U.S. Like the guy who directed Poltergeist and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre just couldn't. And even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, that wasn't a hit either. So it's one of those things where it's really too bad. And I personally feel that the quality of a film, there's more to it than the box office gross. In fact, the box office gross has no effect on the quality of the film whatsoever to me. But when it comes to a director and their career, it does. And when you have a bunch of high profile flops, Hollywood's not going to come knocking at your door, even despite how talented of a filmmaker you are. And it's just one of those things where I feel Tobe got a raw deal, and just had a lot of bad luck with his projects, and it just ended up not working out for him in the end. And I miss him, and may he rest in peace. And I personally feel that even with his work on films like Night Terrors, which is bad, like I said earlier, his direction wasn't bad, and with The Mangler, his direction was great, and he's a big reason why the film is good, because of his direction. It elevates the film to a new, it kicks it into another gear. But anyway, I really don't know what else to say about The Mangler, except I recommend it. If you don't like it, cool. It's not the type of film that would be for everybody. But if you're a fan of horror films, if you're a fan of just over the top, fun horror movies, like I think this is a good watch. I think it's worth at least one watch. But anyway, as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later. See ya.